Hello. Um, I was just watching an interesting podcast or vlog, or I don't know what's the proper terminology, but like a YouTube video about, I think it was on the bad faith. Like it was Brianna Joy Gray. So I think it was on her bad faith podcast or whatever. Um, and she was talking with three men that were three black men about um, the future of the black left, basically. And anyway, I didn't get the name of the men that she was talking to in there, but there was one of them that was saying that like Brianna was asking, so what needs to happen? What positive change can happen? What would it look like? And he was saying we need to defund the police, we need to defund the military industrial complex, and we need to um, live subsistence, lives in accordance with like ecology, like so that we can, try to mitigate global warming, climate change, and so that we can survive. And and he got a lot of pushback actually from that, from like everybody else on the panel. And but I again, unfortunately, I don't know what his name was, but he was in the lower right of the four panels. But I fully agree that there should be an emphasis on simplifying our lives, on, at the very least, being conscious of one's impact on the environment, and, reducing consumption. Because I just think a lot of people, they don't factor that in. It's not a factor for them, like to think about the environment when they're considering what they're doing about anything. Or I don't know, I think for a lot of people, they don't really seem to factor it in. But then, so the other one of the panelists, the one on the lower left, said that you have to you can't tell people, when it's the military that's creating all the pollution, you can't tell people to live a subsistence life or whatever, when they maybe just got out of poverty and they're just starting to taste some lower middle class lifestyle or something. And, without some institutional backing, he said, like, you have to have an institutional backing. So, I mean, it was kind of just, I don't want to belabor the point, but it was like a bad take of his, because like the other guy had already mentioned the military, defunding the military, and B, I think it's a mistake to say that people can't be moral actors just because they're, working class, or just because they're, that they can't be enjoined to higher principles. I mean, a lot of people hunger for higher principles, no matter what their walk of life is. And, a lot of churches and different religions have fed on that hunger, to be part of something bigger and grander, and so I just think that we need to stop kind of living in two worlds in terms of environmentalism. Like, in one world, we say, like, the sky is falling and we only have 3 years to live, or whatever's the current thing being said about climate change. And I don't honestly know. I don't know the exact details of all that, but I do know that in basically every way conceivable, humans, capitalists and just industrialized modern humans are destroying the environment, destroying the planet, genociding all the animal and plant species, and I think we have to take it seriously. We can't just fall back always on traditional Marxist analysis. I mean, maybe we can. Maybe that will, if you apply it to this, but it has to be applied to the reality that we are facing an existential crisis. I mean, the environment is always an existential, necessity, like the ecological balance. I think that, not that everybody has to live like a minimalist lifestyle, and of course, as they would have all agreed, it is highly important and maybe most important to defund and dismantle the military and end all that type of pollution. But they, oh my God. Sorry, I live with this dog that just barks I don't know. Well, yeah, I'm not sure how much of the sound of that is going through. But anyway, my point is that I think that should be the ideal. The ideal should be subsistence living, and I mean, or if you can produce some surplus and save it for yourself and others, or distribute it, then good. But not this just system that's predicated on a need for endless growth, and it all just goes to serve nothing. It all goes to just destroy all these resources, and a lot of it is just wasted because there's so many products that are made and things that are harvested and grown, whatever, that are just wasted because nobody could buy it. So because they didn't have enough of the money and they couldn't line up the right. I mean, it's just an endless amount of waste that goes on in the capitalist system, or just that goes on. So I think that it's a fundamental way that modern industrial culture has made the idea of subsistence living, the idea of living in a hut and growing your own food or something, seem either distasteful and or impossible, or just so arduous. They don't want you to know that that's actually a much easier way to live, if you compared to working 40 hours every week if you just have a good program for subsistence agriculture and you just live off of that. If you have some system where you can do that, or maybe just have enough surplus that you can sell a little bit of it to pay some taxes or whatever, some certain bills, you know. And I think like that also poses a larger danger to like if everybody grows their own food, for instance, that poses a larger danger to the capitalist you know, system, in terms of like people being dependent on employment. Because again, like if you can subsist, if you can feed yourself, and then maybe have some surplus that you can barter, then you can potentially like either temporarily or permanently exit basically the capitalist system or the money system altogether. So you know, it's good from an economic and ecological perspective, and probably more, you know, psychological, etc., etc. Again, it's not like everybody has to grow all their own food or everybody has to do this. Like, I mean, I've never had a situation where like I've just rented rooms. I rent a room, so I don't have any place I can grow food. But if I did, that's what I would immediately do. But yeah, like, I mean, honestly, we need to look to the quote unquote like non-industrialized peoples of the world to find out how to live, because you know, Westerners and just kind of modern industrialized people have put themselves on a pedestal as being like the only as being the future, and basically the only possible future and the only possible present. And it's just very inescapably true that actually our you know, modern industrialized society and technology have not been, you know, is not like a viable future. It's not a sustainable future. So then if we, basically the issue is, if we want to have a sustainable future and a viable future, you know, we have to be probably very imaginative and adaptive, but we can also look to so many different examples of basically everybody else except for us modern industrialized people. Like every other society, including current societies that are quote unquote not industrialized, you know, like not you know, that are not using the same like technologies and systems and capitalist modes and whatever as most of the major, you know, powerful countries are, I guess. Then I think those are the people those are like our only hope, you know. And also in history, like we can look to the histories of more traditional peoples, like both, you know, recent and ancient, and we can find a lot of different ways to accomplish a lot of the same things that we now, you know, depend on toxic technologies and wasteful technologies and exploitative technologies for, that were originally, ways like stuff that we now need plastic for, that they used to just accomplish with like some kind of leaf, like a banana leaf or something, and it might have worked better. There's so many ways, like even in terms of, air conditioning, and refrigeration, and so many different traditional methods that were used, traditional technologies that actually took ecology into, I think the ancient ways were tended to be more harmonized with nature. So I think a lot of those traditions can be very instructive if we, and perhaps like, indispensable for our survival as a species. And just a sense, like any people that, there's just that chip on the shoulder that so many of people have against, like, well, we're in the modern times and we have this magic technology. And I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that we have that as far as I know, that they didn't have it before. But there's also more and more I discover things that they did have that they think that, that most people, or that I had thought that they didn't, that we just came up with, like they used to have plastic in California, actually, like in ancient, like 1,000 or 2,000 years ago or so. And then apparently they were using plastic bottles for water, plastic water bottles. And the scientists say that it seemed to have affected their like led to birth defects from drinking the water from the plastic bottles. And it may have like led to a decline in that civilization, and then the discontinuation of the use of plastic. And there's like the Baghdad battery, like a possible battery that's like, thousands of years old, from Iraq. And so all the time we find out ways, I've found like numerous maps of the world, and basically like global maps from ancient Egypt, from going back, the oldest is 5,500 years old. And and then going on through 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, around, mostly in through there. Like basically I've identified about 40 or 50 maps of America, and at least 30 or so of the whole globe, of the whole planet, that were hidden inside coffins in the kind of princes, or the rulers of the province of Thoth, of Hermopolis. And so in the Deir el Barsha cemetery, there's all these coffins that have all these world maps that mostly just have America, illustrated, actually. But there's one or more that, there's a spectrum as to how far they illustrate the rest of the continents. But America is illustrated in most of them. Some of them are all just text, just like Ptolemy's geography from 2,000 years ago ish. But I'm saying, like, going, like, not using plastic, like, I consider this is like the age of plastic, just like there was like the golden age and the silver age and the copper age and the bronze age and the iron age, and etc. Like we're now in the plastic age. And so like there's so many things that like that you can do without plastic and even without electricity. But like I'm not saying we have to ditch electricity. I do think it's imperative that we try to find some way, if we're going to use electricity on such the scale, that we find more ecological ways to produce it. But even with electricity, like there's so many things that are probably electronic that don't necessarily have to be. I mean, it's just in just every way that we can, we should try to like move towards an ecological, to being in harmony with ecology and to being sustainable. And that, and it's like, it's essential. It's the kind of like, just as much as a person should have a conscience regarding like social issues and economic issues and et cetera, these issues should also be part and parcel of one's conscience and sense of responsibility. And again, like I'm not saying one size fits all, but I think that we would do well to look to the ancients and look to traditional peoples, hunter-gatherers and other, and agriculturists, just basically every culture except for modern industrial capitalism. Look to virtually, I mean, not that there weren't huge mistakes. There were people drinking water with lead and et cetera. And just like I said, in California, with the plastic, like they made mistakes too, and we should learn from those mistakes too. But we should also learn from how they did a lot without a lot of the things that we seem to find necessary for everything. So anyway, yeah, take care and solidarity.